Hello and welcome. And I'm Jody Myciak. And today I am here with Valerie. Oh my goodness, please say it for me.
D'Ambrosio happens
Thank you
all the
so
time.
thank you so much. It's a beautiful name.
Thank you.
And I am so excited to be here with her today. And hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being here today.
No, Jody, thank you for having me. I love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I love what you're doing. And just for everybody watching that doesn't know Valerie, she is the connection coach. She is a visionary, a storyteller, a certified yoga teacher, an intuitive life coach, and a fiery spirit who believes that we are all born for greatness. And at any day, at any moment and any time, we can tap into our power. And she has over 20 years of experience teaching and coaching. So I'm just so excited to have her here today with us. So I would love to get started and hear just a little bit more. What is a connection coach? What is it that you do?
Yeah, so like you just said, I've been coaching for a long time, and I started off in the health and wellness industry years ago, and slowly that evolved as I evolved. And my my main thing was growing up, I didn't really have a sense of self. I didn't really have much self-love at all, and so I was very disconnected. I was disconnected from myself. I was disconnected to other things and people, and I was walking around kind of almost like, if you would imagine, just someone with a lot of like scabs or wounds on their body. And that's kind of how I was living my life. And I was terrified to really let anything in too deep and too close and all these different things. And yet it was what I craved more than anything in the world, you know. But the way in which I distracted myself, which I discovered a myriad of ways to do that, whether that was like under eating, overeating, drinking alcohol, over dating, overworking, over exercising, you know, all these different things. And so over the years, I really, really just kept diving in and diving in and diving into personal growth with different teachers like Marianne Williamson and Carolyn Mace and Tony Robbins. And these are big teachers of mine over the years. And then more and more teachers would come in. And I realized that as I continued to work with people and obviously, teach kind of what I learned, is that when I started to brand myself a few years ago, it was the first time I was actually, normally whenever I had a business, the business was called something else. And this was the first time I was actually launching me. But I struggled because I was like, well, what is it that I do? I support people, and really ultimately, if you break it down, cultivating deep compassion and self-love. But I realized when I weaved everything and I looked at my entire life, it was all about connection, because I believe everything is connection in life. We're always in connection with our bodies, with our food, with our work, with our money, with our intimate partners, with our children, with nature, in every moment. But this is an area of life we're not taught, majority of us, unless we go to school for psychology. And so I feel passionately about that. And so ultimately, that's when I came up with the name, The Connection Coach, because that to me is what is the most important thing, especially in being a woman. I feel like that's something that we deeply crave and desire at our core essence.
Oh my goodness, yes. And your story it really touches me, because I kind of did the same thing. I didn't feel like I had scabs, but I came out in anger at people because I was pretending to be somebody I wasn't. I kind of turned into a person just to fit into whoever I was with. So I definitely kind of have that same, but it was definitely lack of self-love as well.
Yeah.
Your story really touches me, because I definitely know where you've come from too.
Yeah, and that's what I feel like is that oftentimes a common thread between women, because one of my teachers, who I'm actually studying under right now, Allison Armstrong, she is basically a relationship teacher or coach or whatever. She works with men and women, and one thing that she says that I really resonate with this is that at a fundamental, like, DNA level, because really in the only thing that's changed in our DNA in 10,000 years is only been slightly because of language. But other than that, in 40,000 years, it's wild that literally only that little bit has changed, and that was only 10,000 years ago. I mean, that was 10,000 years ago. So we're operating as cavemen and cave women. And when I think about that, and when she talks about that, she talks about the fact that men come in almost like like their factory version of them. It's like when you buy a car, it comes factory, and so you sell it in like with what it's got in it. You don't have to upgrade anything. They come into this lifetime with confidence. And according to her, which I really agree with, we actually don't come in with that. That's something that's after factory, right? It's something that we actually build in us. And the reason is because as a species, we're actually smaller, not only because we don't have the amount of testosterone men have, but we're physically actually smaller than men, even when it's a bone to muscle ratio compared to even a bigger woman, that we are kind of the smaller species, if you will. And I really resonated with that, because if you look at most women, or you look at the things that are more self-growth oriented or anything, that it is mostly women, and it is that kind of a thing, because we're constantly adapting, kind of looking outside of ourselves, kind of asking, am I okay? Is this enough? Am I enough? Am I enough? Am I enough? And when we are in that kind of any kind of tension, it's easy to forget. If we're not surrounded by people that we feel safe around, or people that love us, or we're not doing things that inspire us and feed our souls, it's easy to fall back to that kind of old way of being, I think, personally. So I think it's common.
Yes, definitely common. And that's so right. I can definitely see that as well, for sure. And that's why it is really important for mothers to really, find this connection,
Yeah,
to themselves and to others, so then they can, share that with their daughters and their children.
yeah.
That's really great. And so while we're on the topic of that, what would you suggest a mother who's kind of beating herself up or not really loving herself, kind of where you came from, maybe just feeling unconnected? What advice would you give them to kind of get out of that and stop feeling down on themselves?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I coach a lot of moms, a lot of powerful moms, and meaning like oftentimes they have, either they're very strong, like women working in corporate, or some really big job that are holding and spinning all these plates in different of their areas of their lives, or just strong women in general. And what's really interesting is that when there is that moment of that, they didn't feel they did their best, they could have done differently, they could have done better, maybe they just felt shame or judgment in that moment, or maybe they were comparing themselves to somebody else, or they, it's like we have this ideal woman in our head all the time telling us like, well, so-and-so wouldn't do that way, or you should really do this, or I can't believe you haven't done that yet, constantly, speaking to us. And so, there's a few things is first of all, it's recognizing that, and that's why connection, going back to connection and connecting with other women about these really real things in life, about these feelings that we have, is so vital. I think it's in that moment of neutralizing, of being with other women, of recognizing, oh my gosh, you feel that too. Like, it's not just me. I'm not just crazy thinking I'm like, just so imperfect all the time and messing up all the time. And, and so I think it's that number one is, first of all, having, other believing eyes in your life, and people that, that are your sisters, that you can go to, that you can share this with, that won't tell you you're crazy, because a man doesn't fully understand. I mean, he can have empathy for you, but he may not understand. He doesn't understand the ideal woman in his head. He doesn't have that. We're constantly criticizing ourselves. So that's the first thing, is just to do something as far as surrounding ourselves with like-minded women who can also relate to that will kind of remind us and say, hey, let me be your mirror right now. Let me remind you how wonderful you are. The other thing is remembering those feelings, because ultimately that's what it is, right? We experience a thought like, oh, I shouldn't have done that, I could do better next time. And then we have a feeling, and usually the feeling is something like judge or shame or guilt. And it's a moment of that, acknowledging that feeling. Sometimes I think as women, we take on that feeling and we're like, oh, I can't believe I'm feeling this, or, and we make a bigger deal about what it is than it is. And we beat ourselves up for having the feeling, which only then like compounds the feeling. Right. So and I was actually having this conversation with a girlfriend yesterday, and I just reminded her, and this is the work that I personally do with myself as well as I work with my clients on, is is giving us that room to go, oh wait, like that's actually, it's normal that I'm feeling shame right now. It's normal. It's totally normal. It's just an emotion. It's just energy moving through my body. It's just something I'm experiencing in this moment. And now there's a label attached to it, which is called, shame. And whatever meaning I'm giving it is what it's going to become. So instead, can I allow it to just be a feeling moving through my body? And sometimes in that moment, taking a breath and counting backwards from 5 in the breath, 4, 3, 2, 1, because then we get our attention out of that space. And also something happens in the brain, and I'm not really that scientific, so I can't say what happens, but it does shift our brain when we do count backwards from 5 to 1 while we're breathing. So that's another thing. And then I just thought of something else, and I know what I was going to say is sometimes when we feel big, whatever it is, like, maybe it's something happened at work and we're really upset, or something happened with our children and we're really upset, and we have that moment of like, or we're really bummed at the way that anything's turning out in our lives. I think sometimes, it's interesting, as children, you have a temper tantrum and it's okay. And all of a sudden something happens when we get older, and if we were, God forbid, to have a temper tantrum, we'd be labeled crazy. And I think women are labeled crazy enough where there's so much shame around that when we're just experiencing emotion. And sometimes literally it's like I give myself that permission, and however that looks for me, but to just like have a temper tantrum, obviously not hurt anyone, make this be a very personal expression of energy, but just being like, I'm pissed, I'm just angry, or I'm so scared, I'm so sad right now, whatever it is, and just let it just out, because if we don't move it, it's going to come out in another way, and usually a way we're not really proud.
And sometimes we say things that we don't.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great, giving yourself permission to be in that place, because you're right. We all feel it now and then, the shame, the guilt. And I actually work with something called the map of empowerment. So it kind of just makes sense to give that you permission to be there. And I love that. I really do. And then I love it's a tantrum. You're just but you're letting your emotions out. Yeah. And that is beautiful, because when you, like you said, if you leave it in, it's going to come out some way. And that's a lot of the time when our bodies hurt too, because we're holding things in. So I think that that's a brilliant idea. I've never really talked to anybody that sees it like that. And that is, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah.
It's really incredible. So now you actually are a yoga instructor too. And you practice you kind of have lined your yoga practice, and you kind of use yoga with self introspective. Is that something? So tell us a little bit about how you use yoga and introspective together.
So one of the topics that I'm like extremely passionate about, is understanding masculine and feminine energies. And the way that I see it is that men come into this world with a certain percentage of masculine in them and a certain percentage of feminine. And just because, like, let's say it's 70-30, or maybe it's 90-10 or something like that. And even some men that have more feminine, they still might like women, they still may like the opposite sex, but maybe they're just more flamboyant in their way of being, right? Where women come in and they're 50-50. And what changes and what basically is a discernment between how we show up in the world is which one, like any muscle, we build more, which one we are really just maybe, and role modeled ultimately, really, and then we're practiced it. So for me, I'm definitely feminine at my core. I definitely strengthen my masculine more growing up. I grew up with a single mother who was raising 2 children. She had 3 jobs. We lived in a very affluent town, so she was doing everything to keep us at this great school and, keeping up with the Joneses, and it was that kind of thing. But she worked her tail off, and she's a strong woman. And so I kind of was role modeled that, and I started to follow that in my life, became an entrepreneur at 20 and just worked my tail off and just, exercised like crazy and, just was like this perfecting kind of machine. And, to the expense of myself, but I lived in the excessive masculine for a long time. And so I've really been learning to cultivate and strengthen the feminine in me for many years now. I actually moved my life and picked my life up to like go to a smaller town to learn how to slow down and soften. I did that for 3 years. And it's a daily practice for me, daily. And so for me right now, and I'm saying this because intuitively I just feel like maybe some women that are watching this right now can relate to this, but I recognize in my life that it doesn't even matter if you're more masculine or feminine. It could just be a fact of where you are in life. Let's say that, for example, your husband works long hours and you have to take the role of being home and taking care of the children, or even you're out and your husband's home and taking care of the children. It's like, even though it's home and taking care of the children, you obviously know that there's a lot of masculine energy that has to be done. Things have to be done. Things have to be focused on, and all these different things. And I think that sometimes when I'm in that more task-oriented place, I tend to become more tight, more rigid, and it shows up in my life. And I don't feel comfortable, and then I start to get fiery. And for those of you, or I don't know if you know, Jody, like I'm into the Ayurvedic doshas. I get very vata, so I get in my head, I get really like, and I just I can't soften. And so for me, dropping into yoga, and I actually like to be led. And the reason why I like to go to class or do it by video is because I'm done leading. I'm done taking control. I'm done thinking. I just want somebody to tell me what to do so I can drop into my feminine and breathe deeply and let the movements move me. And it's, to me, it's a reconnecting with spirit. And I think as women, we naturally are connected to spirit. I think that's a very natural thing for us. I think that we can feel pulled away, but in any moment we can drop back in. I think it's very different for men. And but I think that having little things like that, and for me, one of the things is yoga, and nature's another one for me, but to bring us back to that, like a place to just soften and to me be led. It's just to really access that feminine part of ourselves that maybe has been a little neglected for some of the time.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I gotta fit more yoga into my life. I used to do yoga all the time and then I have 2 young kids, so it's finding the time. And I do it occasionally with my daughter. We'll do like the kids yoga, but she's still only 3, so it only lasts for a couple minutes. And it's not that when it's quiet and you're really connecting with your spirit, then it's a whole different thing as well. Absolutely. So there's stretching and then there's actually connecting. But definitely, yes, it makes me want to get back into yoga more.
Yeah.
Because I understand what you're saying, because I definitely have that control gene, or whatever you want to call it, where I want to control everything. And I've definitely been trying to just let it go.
Yeah.
It feels a lot lighter.
Yeah.
I definitely understand that.
And I don't know, like sometimes I feel so bound, and I'm like, sometimes I'll look at my boyfriend and I'll go, I just need help. I want to relax, and I want to like drop in. And he's like, what can I do? I'm like, I don't know, just hold me and guide me. And I don't know, I just need to be, and I can't. And then like, I'll go to yoga class and I'll call him. I literally did this the other day. I called him. I was like, honey, that's all I needed. I feel so much better. And he's like, oh, honey, that's wonderful. I'm like, oh, it's so good. And I felt like I could sparkle again. I felt like I couldn't sparkle, And, and I think it's challenging. I find that with a lot of my clients that do have little ones that, in carving out time, it's like, well, how am I supposed to sit in a corner and meditate when I have children running around? And how am I supposed to get onto my mat? I can't enjoy it when my kids are doing it with me. And I think, it so depends on the situation, everything like that. Like, are there 2 partners, right? Yeah. What's the financial, what's this, what's that, all these different factors. but I think it's really, leaning in on community or your partner and being like, hey, if I don't do this, this is actually a detriment to our family. And I really strongly believe that. And it's coming up with the best system that works. And I'm not saying it's easy, but it's something that I feel is necessary to implement. It's like going, hey, baby, like, I need your help here, because I'm finding that if I'm so far on this side, I can't be the loving, playful, nourishing, kind. Like, I find that when when I lose sleep or when I don't connect into that feminine, I lose two things. I lose compassion and I lose patience. And to me, those are qualities of a woman. A man doesn't have that. These are natural qualities. And when we lose them as women, I feel like it's such a detriment to everyone around them.
Yes. And for moms, compassion and patience, those are two things we absolutely need to handle the situations of our day with children.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not sleeping through the night, my son's he's 14 months, he's still not sleeping through the night. But if I can find those little moments of, just connecting with myself, then I have patience. But if I don't, that's when, it goes upside down and around and everything. So I love that. And one thing that I found, because I don't have the time for yoga, it's not that I don't have the time, it's finding the right yoga for, like, I know a certain yoga that I love. So it's just finding the right instructor again, and the right yoga family kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing is meditating or visualization. So it's, finding that thing that works for moms at that time.
Yeah, the way that I think about it, Jody, personally, is things that feed my spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think about and suggest having 5 tools in your back pocket, or even 3, but at least 3 that that feed your spirit. And because and knowing, kind of like knowing the knowing when your spirit is empty, or when your cup is empty. It's like we know when that happens. And it's like, okay, so in that moment, how can we take responsibility, and can we go, all right, I need to do something to feed my spirit? And for me, that's, like I said, that's getting onto my mat. That's for sure meditating. That's being out in nature and moving my body. That's listening to music, or even sometimes, like the other day, I got up and I went down to this clubhouse where we're staying, and I didn't care. I know there's videos or whatever, but I put on some Donna Delore and I just danced my tail off, and I loved it, and I just had so much fun. And I looked, and this is what's really interesting, because I had self-image stuff for a long time. I looked in the mirror as I danced, and as I was doing that, I was reminding myself of how beautiful I am. And that was interesting, but I had disconnected from myself so much that I couldn't access that feeling of beauty and fluidity in me. And as I saw myself like swirling, being like this whirling dervish, I was like, oh, there she is, and sometimes I have to fake it until I make it, sometimes I just want to look at the parts that I think are imperfect. But it's that, like you said, the moment of connecting with self. It's like we get to feel full in that moment, and it may even be half full at that moment, but still, at least we're in the direction of filling up than emptying.
Oh, I love that. And that's a great, I was actually going to ask you for advice to give the mothers that are super busy, but that's a great one, is to just put on music, put on your favorite song and just dance. And then connecting with your image in the mirror, just really, loving who you are. That's just an amazing thing to do with that. So that's incredible. And for moms, that's even, something that they can do with their kids.
Yeah.
Really dance. So I think that that's a lovely idea to really just rebalance.
Yeah.
Mind.
And these are things you can do with your kids too. Like that's the coolest thing. Like dancing with your children and helping them see and allowing yourself to feel beautiful with them. Gosh, think about what that teaches them, whether they're boys or girls. It's like, oh, here's mom. She's like, she's seeing, they don't know, like she's seeing that she's beautiful right now. And, it's really lovely. And another thing that I was just thinking about was, I am very into the gods and goddesses, and I don't know if women that are watching are, but there's this goddess Lakshmi, and she's the goddess of beauty and abundance. And for me, seeing her, looking at her, picking angel cards, that all makes me feel beautiful. Holding crystals in my hands makes me feel beautiful. Even saying certain mantras connect me back with that part of me. I am special, I am beautiful, I create beauty and I nourish beauty, and wherever I go, and all those different things, like those kind of things help me to access again more and more of my essence.
That is beautiful. I do love the angel card.
Yeah.
That is newer into my life for the past 3 years. But yes, those are very somewhat new.
Yeah.
That is a nice one as well. I love that. And anybody can have a crystal. Do you have a favorite crystal?
Oh gosh. I'm always pulled toward labradorite. Then there's so many different aspects of that. And usually we have all over our house, we have all over a ton of rose quartz and amethyst. So I think those are probably the main ones that are in my physical environment, but wearing on my body, I frequently go to labradorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Crystals aren't, I know a lot, well, I don't know a lot about crystals actually, but I know a lot of people that do, and it is a very amazing thing that I just haven't really, the world I haven't really learned too much about yet.
Yeah.
It is a wonderful energy place to be for sure.
Yeah. It's so feminine. I don't know. To me, it's so feminine. It's like a
Okay.
whole universe of femininity. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And before we go,
Yeah.
I would love, like, do you have any other words of encouragement, advice that you'd like to share with us today before we go?
I mean, I just think the main thing that we continue to reiterate again and again, a lot of us are taught that taking care of ourselves and putting ourselves first is considered selfish. And just remembering that it's that whole idea of that if we don't, we're actually a detriment to other people, because ultimately we don't feel good, and we're led by our feelings. We're emotional beings. We're beautiful beings as women, and we chose in this lifetime to come in as women as these glorious beings of chaos and storms and beauty and creativity and nourishment and earth energy and all these beautiful things. And so to make sure to just keep filling yourself up in whatever ways, and allow yourself, when you feel those big emotions, to just give yourself spaciousness to feel them fully in any way that makes you feel safe.
Oh, wow. That is beautiful. I love that advice. And you're so right. It's amazing.
Thank you,
And,
Jody.
yes. And thank you so much, Valerie, for being here with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yes, my pleasure. Love it, love it, love it. Keep doing this work. So
Awesome.
needed.
Yeah. And I want to thank all you mommies out there that are watching. Thank you. Again, it might be your first video you've watched of mine of an interview series, or it's been multiple, but thank you for taking the time for you to really just get to know other ways of connecting with yourself, and just to really find that self-love of yours. So thank you. And bye, everyone. Bye, Valerie.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a beautiful day, everyone. Bye for now.